Welcome to another session of Heart to Heart. It's my pleasure to introduce my colleague, Dr. Andrew Smith, who trained at Vanderbilt and has been in Baton Rouge for almost 20 years at this point, Andrew.
Hard to believe.
So we've got an exciting topic to talk about today. It's lifestyle with an emphasis really on the conversation about diet. What are your thoughts on lifestyle measures as a cardiologist? What do you tell your patients?
There's some global kind of recommendations. If you look at the ACC guidelines from a couple of years ago, it's really focused on diet and exercise and trying to get 150 minutes a week, which is a tough goal for some of our patients. And then really focusing on, from a diet perspective, eating more of trying to eat less processed food, eating more whole food, more vegetable focused, plant-based focused than perhaps what a standard American diet typically is. For my patients, I tell them, just make a couple of changes, because I think when we make wholesale changes, they might be able to stick with it for a couple of months, but if they can make 3 changes, and we talk about what is it, and you'll kind of elicit some diet things that maybe they don't want to tell you, like, well, doc, I really like a big bowl of cereal right before I go to bed, or I eat ice cream 5 nights a week, and say, okay, well, that's low-hanging fruit. Let's take 1 or 2 of those things out and just make small incremental changes, and I think over time, that makes a bigger change than just a massive change for a couple months that they're not able to sustain.
With exercise, with some of our patients that are older, have arthritis, what do you advise those patients to do?
So I want patients to, again, small incremental changes. So not everybody can go to 150 minutes a week. Maybe they're too old, they have arthritic issues, like you say, or maybe there's a single mom who's getting up at 5 in the morning, trying to get it to work, they get their kids to the bus at 6, and they just don't have a lot of time. So it's small things. Let's start with walking, maybe twice a day for 5 minutes. Even that small amount has been shown to improve cardiovascular health. And then, I ask them, what would you look as an ideal long term? It is that 150 minutes. And maybe it's 30 minutes a day of walking, and plus maybe a couple days a week of some sort of resistance training. Because, as we get over 40, we lose about 1% of our muscle mass every year. So it's really important to not only do that cardiovascular stuff, but keep that muscle mass, not just from a cardiac perspective, but just an overall health perspective, for less prone to injuries as they get older. Certainly the exercise and resistance training has been shown to be good for your brain health and all these things. So it's not just from a cardiovascular perspective, but from a whole person perspective.
Right.
We talk about these
Getting
things.
back to the diet, we hear a lot about, there are lots of mixed messages out there about different types of diets. What do you recommend to your patients specifically? What thoughts do you have on the quote-unquote best cardiac diet?
Yeah, it's a great question. I think if I'm just going to say global best cardiac diet and trying to meet patients where they are, I think the Mediterranean diet is something people can easily conceptualize and easily bring a lot of those parts of that diet into their own lifestyle. I think, ideally you really, you can go from perspective of veganism, completely away from animal proteins, animal products, to more of a combination, which, kind of a Mediterranean approach. Certainly there's data that shows that animal protein, especially processed animal protein, is hugely inflammatory, hugely deleterious to hypertension, cardiovascular disease, diabetes. So I try to move them from what's a typical American diet, heavy with animal protein, to more of a vegetarian or vegetable focused diet with still some animal protein in there, because I just don't think most patients can get to the kind of ideal diet. It's hard to get there.
Yeah, the standard American diet, the SAD, SAD,
diet,
is really
right.
a sad diet, unfortunately. As you said, increases inflammation, contributes to the main causes of cardiovascular death, diabetes, being overweight. So say, for example, going around a supermarket, what do you advise your patients to stay away from, and what do you advise them to buy?
I think a great saying, I forget who said it, but if it's boxed or it's bagged, don't eat it. So the standard, I think it's really interesting. If you look at the snack industry in this country, it really only took off in the 50s. I mean, you certainly had stuff before that, but we are kind of under this constant barrage of highly dense, caloric processed food, terrible for you. And we are probably the country that, we have all these resources, but we have bad health outcomes. A lot of it's the fact that we eat these highly processed, calorie-dense foods while we're sitting in our cars, driving 30 minutes to go pick up our kids from soccer. And, we're kind of programmed to want that. We want the sugar, we want the sweet. And so it's really hard to break away from that, because it's so easy to pick up a bag of chips and your body craves them. We really like them. So, again, it kind of comes back to kind of that early advice of let's avoid, pick your top 3 things that you know you do bad. I eat potato chips every day when I pick up my kids after school. Okay, let's take that away. And just those little incremental things over time can make a big difference.
Dr. Smith, can you tell me about other lifestyle measures you advise your patients? So we've talked about diet and exercise. Any other thoughts on any other lifestyle measures you impart
I think
to
one thing
patients?
I've started to focus on a little more is sleep patterns. And just because I've found a lot of our patients just they don't have good sleep hygiene before they go to bed. They watch TV till 10:30, turn the TV off, immediately go to bed. Well, they may feel like they got a good 7 hours, but they're really not getting proper deep sleep, proper REM sleep. So they're not getting that really restorative sleep. So I'll ask patients just to take a 2-hour window prior to sleep of no electronics, no iPad, no TV. And even if they're sleeping the same amount, their sleep quality is much better. And that goes to reduction in risk of type 2 diabetes, hypertension. And so sleep pattern and sleep health is really important.
Dr. Smith, how can patients learn more about some of the tips that you've given us today?
Probably the best way is to go to the website, ololrmc.com/heart.
Thank you so much for watching Heart to Heart. Until the next time.